President of France, Emmanuel Macron, had his first phone conversation with the leader of the Syrian administration, Ahmed al-Sharaa. As reported by Reuters, the politicians discussed the organization of the transitional period in Syria. They paid particular attention to the sanctions imposed during Assad's rule. According to a Syrian report, Macron stated that Paris is ready to work on lifting restrictions to help Syria recover. At the end of 2024, the European Union was already discussing the possibility of lifting sanctions, but Brussels' main demand remains the withdrawal of Russian troops from the country.
We have also seen the European Union's position and Saudi Arabia's request to ease sanctions on Syria, which has had some effect, as EU leaders have stated. These issues are also being discussed in the United States, as the U.S. has a presence in northeastern Syria.
Russia is trying to negotiate with Syria's new administration to maintain its military bases in Khmeimim and Tartus. Still, there has been no progress on this issue. Damascus is demanding compensation from Moscow for the years of bombardment and the extradition of the dictator Bashar al-Assad, who fled to the Russian Federation. According to Bloomberg, the talks have reached an impasse. The Kremlin is now left with only the option of continuing to remove its military equipment from the country. But even this is not going smoothly. A Russian ship carrying military cargo from Syria has been stopped off the coast of Malta due to technical problems, while other ships, according to the Crimea Reality, continue moving toward Russia.
A Russian military convoy consisting of 2 transport ships loaded with military equipment from Syria, along with escort ships from the Mediterranean fleet of the Russian Navy, has passed through the Strait of Sicily and is heading toward Gibraltar. Libya has been left behind, meaning the military equipment will not reach Africa and will be transported via the Atlantic and the Baltic Sea to Russia, from a Crimea Reality publication.
Turkey may become the key military ally of Syria's new administration. According to the Egyptian portal Madam Asr, Ankara is considering the possibility of creating military air bases in the central part of the country. Among the options under discussion are an airfield near Palmyra and an air base near the town of Tayas. Turkey may soon sign a mutual defense agreement with Syria, according to sources from Madam Asr. This allows Turkey to use Syrian airspace for military purposes. Additionally, the possibility of training Syrian soldiers by Turkish instructors is under discussion.
We are working together on the remaining major strategic portfolios, most importantly, building a common strategy to confront security threats in the region that guarantee a prolonged peace and security for the people of Syria and Turkey. During our meeting, we discussed the outstanding threats on Syrian soil.
Experts are confident that there are no countries in the region that welcome the Russian military presence in Syria.
Today, the main beneficiaries of influence in Syria are Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the U.S. They are categorically against Russia's presence in Syria, especially the presence of its military bases.
At the same time, Washington apparently is also not interested in maintaining military presence in Syria. NBC News, citing American officials, reports that the U.S. Department of Defense is developing a plan to withdraw American troops from Syria. Reported by Alexander Zaslavets, Nikita Skoblikov, UATV News. According to the draft law submitted to the State Duma, Russia wants to place new military bases in Belarus. This initiative will be implemented as part of the document signed by Putin and Lukashenko on December 6, 2024, during a meeting of the Supreme State Council in Minsk. The agreement will last for 10 years. The document also mentions the possibility of using nuclear weapons.
Russian nuclear weapons may be used in response to the use of conventional weapons against Russia or Belarus, which create a threat to sovereignty, according to the Security Guarantees Agreement within the Union State, from a Sputnik Belarus Telegram channel.
According to the media, the document also includes a provision about the potential deployment of Belarus citizens to fight in a war against Ukraine, quoted as to protect the territorial integrity of Russia. President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, is certain that Putin not only does not plan to stop the war against Ukraine, but will also try to drag Belarus into it.
You will see it in the spring, in the summer. He will deploy forces on Belarusian territory. And many Europeans, maybe even the United States, will say it's intimidation. It's intimidation of Poland, Lithuania, and other Baltic partners. But you'll see he will do everything to involve them. He will think of ways to provoke them. I don't know if there will be an invasion, but in any case, this will drag Belarus into the war.
Belarus is ready de facto participating in Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. In February 2022, Minsk allowed the use of its military infrastructure and airspace for the Russian army's invasion and the shelling of peaceful Ukrainian cities. In January this year, Lukashenko announced the deployment deployment of so-called Russian Oreshnik installation on Belarus territory. Meanwhile, Russia continues to conduct drills on the covert launch of intercontinental ballistic missiles Yars in the Volga region.
During maneuvering actions, units are practicing tasks of dispersing in the forest area to enhance the stealth of the mobile ground-based missile system Yars. These planned activities allow for testing the readiness of personnel, as well as weaponry and military equipment for long-term duty on combat patrol routes. Ministry of Defense of Russia on Telegram.
The full-scale Russian invasion in 2022 would not have happened if Ukraine had not abandoned its nuclear arsenal under the Budapest Memorandum, said President Volodymyr Zelensky in an interview with British journalist Piers Morgan. That's why Zelensky believes nuclear weapons could become a security guarantee for Ukraine as an alternative to join NATO.
If NATO, not today, but in some future perspective, then the whole process of moving toward NATO, no matter how long it takes, unfortunately does not depend on us. If this process drags on for years or even decades, not because of us but because of our partners, then we have an absolutely fair question. What will protect us from this evil during all this time or throughout this entire path? What kind of support package will we get? What missiles? Will they return nuclear weapons to us? Let them return nuclear weapons to us. Or will they give us a package of long-range missiles in such quantities that we can stop Russia? I am not sure about this, although it would definitely help. On the other hand, what missiles can stop Russia's nuclear missiles? That's a rhetorical question.
The full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine is the result of violating international obligations and disregarding global security principles, emphasized the President of Ukraine, reported by Alexandra Zaslavets, Yulia Hranovskaya, UA TV News. In Russia, enterprises of the military-industrial complex lack professional workers. The deficit happened because the Russian Federation started to significantly scale up arms production. According to the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, the volume of arms production has increased 3 to 6 times.
This is a powerful mechanism for warfare. Russia still has the capacity to produce almost all major weaponry nomenclatures, although there is information that the arms industry of Russia lacks hundreds of thousands of professional workers. Ivan Havrilyuk, Lieutenant General, the first Deputy Minister of Defense of Ukraine, in an interview with the Ukrinform publication.
At the time, due to sanctions, components for equipment that Russia used to receive from Western countries have become unavailable, and due to significant losses on the front lines, the Russian army is using Soviet-period weapons.
Instead of modern tanks, mostly Soviet-designed vehicles are sent to the front. The same applies to artillery and multiple rocket launchers. But even old weapons are still weapons. Even T-62 or T-55 are also tanks. The aggressor's logic is simple: not to spend on something that can be refilled from old stockpiles at some point. The main thing is quantity. Ivan Havrilyuk, Lieutenant General, the first Deputy Minister of Defense of Ukraine, in an interview with the Ukrinform publication.
Russia is also faced with significant problems with the replenishment of personnel due to the unwillingness of Russians to fight. In this regard, the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation plans to make it more difficult to release recruits from service. This is stated on the report of the Institute for the Study of War. Now, the monthly enrollment in the ranks of the Russian army is so low that it does not cover the monthly losses. In addition, analysts noted that at the end of 2024 and the beginning of 2025, the level of recruitment of Russian military was either equal to or lower than necessary to compensate for losses. Some regions of Russia are not facing mobilization quotas as more citizens to refuse to fight.
Regions compete with each other to see who will give the most payouts. There is an acute shortage of stormtroopers. While in the past there were hot storms of prisoners sent there by Prigozhin, now things are a bit different with the recruitment of prisoners. But that doesn't change the fact that new people are needed to go on these attacks.
To encourage more people to go to the war, the Russian Ministry of Defense intends to revise the medical criteria for military service and reclassify them as less significant, allowing more people to be declared fit for service.
The Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation proposed reclassifying syphilis, hypertension, central nervous system atrophy disorders, skin diseases, schizophrenia, psychotic disorders, affective disorders, and other health problems as more minor ailments that do not disqualify someone from service. From the Institute for the Study of War report.
Astra reports that those who do not want to go to the front are now placed in special camps in the Russian Federation. Refusers are handcuffed to beds inside the barracks. One such camp was reported to the publication by relatives of one of the victims. The tent camp was rented by people in military uniform on the base of 74th Separate Guards Motor Rifle Brigade of Kuzbas. Let us recall that in recent months, Russia has suffered huge losses in its war against Ukraine. According to the Ukrainian Armed Forces General Staff, the invaders' losses per day range from 1,300 to 2,200 servicemen. Reported by Alexandra Zaslavets, Victoria Smirnova, UATV News.